This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. So it was a fantastic weekend of games across the Senior Hurling Championship, Senior B Hurling Championship, as well as the Intermediate Hurling Championship. And I'm joined by Gerry Kearney to look back on the action. First off, Gerry, to be remiss of me, obviously, if we didn't pay tribute to the Galway Camogie team, obviously, All Ireland champions yesterday. If you're a coach and you're involved in management, I think even with that Camogie team yesterday, everything they produced from work rate and everything, that's what you want your team to produce in a final.
Oh, absolutely. I think as a coach, yesterday was a dream performance, and you have to give huge credit to Cahill and his management team and the players themselves, because everything he wanted them to do, they carried it out to a T. So if you get to a final, you want everything going, and it was just they left nothing there. And the difference was Waterford did that for 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes in a semi-final. That Galway team did that for 60 and 65 minutes. To do that, it was phenomenal effort, absolutely phenomenal effort. So I think from everyone, from the backroom team to the players, I think you have to give them huge credit and congratulations. Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant for Galway. Like it's their fifth All Ireland, but Cahill has delivered three of them senior All Irelands. He's also delivered an intermediate All Ireland, and he's also delivered an under 23 All Ireland this year. So I think 5 titles over, is it 7 years into him, is a great achievement for Cahill. And he, in fairness to him, wherever he's been when he was with Sarsfields, he always brings the titles. He just has that mildest touch. So really good, and I'm sure they're hoping to keep him on for another few years, because they have serious talent coming through. The youth there coming through in Galway at the moment in Camogie is frightening. Like I think they won 16 this year as well, under 23 and senior. Like that's some scalp of Camogie titles, so well done.
It was only when I was listening to him yesterday in the press conference in Croke Park after the game, and he was talking about how in his tenure they've been in 11 of 13 finals, which is remarkable when you even think of that. I think that's the big thing he's brought the Galway Camogie. He's kept them consistent, and to get those consistent levels and keep a team at that level it's easier said than done.
Yeah, no, it is easier said than done. I think probably one of his key things has been that he's every few years he's freshened up the management team. So when they've won, he's kept the management team the same the year after. If it needs to be changed, he has changed it up, and he hasn't been afraid to do that and make the hard decisions. And maybe there's players there as well that are not on the squad yesterday, maybe that left in that, and there was hard decisions and probably hard conversations, and they mightn't be able to commit, because in fairness to him, he would demand a huge commitment from his players. But I think the key is he's been freshened it up. I think he's behind Damien Finnerty this year. He always freshens up his goalkeeping coach. The coaches he has there are good. Shane Sweeney, John O'Connor. He's kept consistency, but he's also brought freshness. And like with a big squad of players like that, you always have to keep challenging them, because you're not going to win All Irelands if you do the same thing, or County Cups if you do the same things year after year. You have to keep challenging the players. You have to keep challenging your management team. And if you do that, generally you'll find results will flow. But everything has to come together. The players and the management all have to buy in. And by listening yesterday evening there to all the interviews, the training, they were challenged at training, they love coming training. All them sort of vibes, they're the sort of thing that leads to a high performance environment. And that's what Galway Camogie had. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Just before we leave it to move on to the club action, Gerry, because obviously a huge amount of action over the weekend, but obviously the Trey McGrath sisters weren't involved in the panel this year. That's obviously been well documented. Then you consider Anya Keane gets a cruciate injury and Neve McPeak. It's really showing the strength of the panel, and probably why it's one of the sweetest All Irelands under Murray's tenure.
Oh, absolutely. I would say, and last night, in fairness, he was very diplomatic on the Sunday game. Like, he was asked that same question, and in fairness, he went through all his All Irelands and spoke about them. But I do think when he sits down and reflects over a pint somewhere on a quiet day with his management team, I'm sure that'll happen in the future. I will say, he'll probably say this has probably been the sweetest, because they were written off in all quarters. To be fair, going into an All Ireland final, I felt they were going in a nice. They were going in as underdogs. They were going in under the radar. but you know, you have nothing to lose in that situation. It's a lot easier to come in that framework. If you're an underdog or if a team has beaten you before, it's a lot easier to come in again. And I think Cahill worked that magically over the last 2 weeks. You could hear the players. Every one of the players that spoke said they were coming up not to just make up numbers. They wanted to win that All-Ireland. They didn't believe Cork should be entitled to get 3 in a row. So all that language, they wouldn't be coming with that sort of language unless that was set down from the top. And obviously that was the mantra for the last 2 weeks. The players hugely bought into that because they put their bodies on the line in some of them tackles. Like maybe got away a few frees. I know the Cork manager was given out afterwards about the frees and the amount of frees that were given to Galway and things. I think in the end, I think Galway actually conceded more frees than Cork. I just think that it's ebbed and flowed, and I think overall the frees evened each other out. But it was just a high quality game, and there was no questions asked. And both teams, to be fair to them, and Cork, especially in the second half, went at it. But for Galway to come back after losing last year, fantastic. To win it, huge satisfaction. I'd say they're down now. They'll be going to Clarinbridge. For Kerry, she was fantastic. Stand up, take a free under the stand like that and put it over in injury time. Took huge mentality from the player. Fantastic. But she's from good stock. So, you know, she had that capability and she nailed it. You know, I don't think there was anyone in the Galway camp that didn't believe she was going to nail that free. So that's huge, having a free taker like that. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, it was a fantastic score, and I'm not actually sure it's maybe got the credit it has deserved when you consider the pressure and the angle and
Yeah.
everything there. She
What was
showed,
at stake? Like, Paul, what was at stake? You know, like
yeah.
it was what was at stake. But she was your captain. She led it, and even in the speech she made afterwards, I thought she was very measured and really good speech, really good captain speech. She didn't leave anyone out. She made sure everything was done. So really well measured and a fantastic young lady.
Yeah, I would just like to congratulate all the players, management team on their year there. A fantastic year, and fair play to even all the Galway supporters going up yesterday. There was a fair crowd up there, and it was a great day out to see that Galway team lift the trophy yesterday in Croke Park. Just before we look at the club action, I've been updating the rankings, so I'll get into that now. So in first place remain Loughrea, then second place Thomas's up one place after their impressive victory over Gort. Clarinbridge, they're up 3 places into third place after an unbelievable performance really against Turloughmore in that second half. Turloughmore down 2 places after their defeat to Clarinbridge. In fifth, Cappataggle, they're down 1 place after their draw with Tommy Larkins. Castlegar, they're up 1 place into sixth after their narrow victory over Ardrahan. Then it's Tommy Larkins, they're up 1 place into seventh place after their draw with Cappataggle. And Oranmore-Maree, an impressive victory for them over Sarsfields at the weekend, has them up 1 place. Sarsfields down 4 places after their narrow defeat to Oranmore-Maree, but no doubt they will be in contention and they will. It's just basically on the rankings where they've ended up down there. Ardrahan, they're into 10th place, up 1 place. A really impressive performance for them against Castlegar, considering some of the bodies they're without. Athenry, they're up 3 places into 11th place after a victory for them over Mike Cullen. And Craughwell up 1 place into 12th place after their victory over Clonmacnoise. Kilconieron running the county champions Loughrea really closely there at the weekend. They're up 3 places. Gort down 2 places into 14th place after a heavy defeat in the end, but the red card there for Craig Laddie did play a part for Gort, unfortunately. Clonmacnoise down 5 places after the defeat to Craughwell, and then Mike Cullen down 1 place in bottom place at the minute in the power rankings. Gerry, just going on opening weekends and what we had over the weekend, I think it was really good from a Galway hurling perspective to see younger players stepping up for their clubs.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's fantastic, and I think the Galway management will be really happy to see the younger players coming through and stepping up. And I'm sure they were out the weekend looking at who's coming and trying to get or select a few players that they can bring in once the club championship is over for next season. So I think it's been really positive, and I think the teams that have kind of gone for me, one of the things that stood out for me the weekend is the teams that kind of went for bringing on some youth players. I'd say just the likes of Kilconieron you mentioned there. They started 4 minors from last year. Oranmore, lots of young talent in their squad. Athenry, lots of young talent in their squad. The likes of those, they had impressive, displays. While as Kilconieron didn't get over the line, it definitely was a really impressive display against the county champions.
If we look at the games, first off, Gerry, just really impressive from St. Thomas's if you look at it in an overall sense. I know, as I mentioned, Gort went down a man there, but obviously without Fintan Burke, without Keane Mahoney, they did a bit of reshuffling, racked up 128, and have once again showed why they're going nowhere this year.
Yeah, like in fairness to St. Thomas's, they're a really good outfit and they're an experienced outfit, Paul. And I know it didn't go their way last year and they didn't annex the 7 in a row. But like for me, and I've said this after last year's county championship, for me this year they freshened up the management. Cathal Daly has gone in there. They brought in new coach in Trevor Fletcher. They're freshened up the setup, the players. They have a few injuries. But like really impressive. 128 is a really impressive score. And like for me, Thomas's are a really dangerous team this year. And I really mean that. I think Thomas's are a team that are on a mission to try and win a county cup again. And like if Thomas's were to win this, I would nearly say it'd be one of their greatest achievements ever to come back after last year's defeat in the semi-final and come back and annex it this year. I think it would be one of their greatest victories. So for me, 128 is really impressive score. And it just kind of goes along what I've been thinking, that Thomas's are going to be there at the business end of the championship. So looking forward to seeing the rest of that for them. And Gort, listen, bit unlucky. Greg Lally getting sent off. Greg has so much experience that having your talisman like that, a leader not on the pitch, is probably they're a young team, Gort. But listen, they'll bounce back as well. Their management team will have to circle the wagons, but they'll bounce back. But Thomas's are a really good team. So 128 and 15 points response from Gort. But like in fairness to Thomas's, really good score, really good opening day.
Éanna Burke, one of the standouts there, 7 points from the edge of the square. Conor Cooney chipped in with a large proportion, couple from frees and a couple from play. I think it was 16 he finished with in the end there. Obviously two of the main scorers and back in their best form, it seemed, at the weekend.
Yeah, back again, but like down through the years anyway, Paul, that's not really a surprise. The two guys you've mentioned, because Conor and Éanna have always been leading lights. They've always been given that leadership for the club. So I'm not surprised that they're the guys there. And like this, in fairness for Thomas's, was probably a dangerous enough game considering what happened last year. Like it took a goal at the death last year to kind of, eke out that draw and, put Gort into the relegation last year. So Thomas's took this game really seriously, but with the scoring that they put up, they did take it really seriously. So Éanna and Conor, they were obviously well sharpened forward mentally as well as physically, and they went after it. Like league results mightn't have been, if you looked at the league results with Thomas's, they didn't go their way, but there wasn't a lot in their league in their league games, so there wasn't a lot in it. So, and they were missing the guys that were with the county. So once they've got all them back, they've integrated them back in again really well and gone. So yeah.
Gort, as you mentioned there, difficult, Gerry, but it's just about do you just park that now and forget about it, because you don't really have time to dwell on a result like that when it comes to the group stages.
No, like the first round, I would always say when I was involved in management with teams in senior, intermediate, or whatever, the first round is about getting a result. That's either a draw or a win, if at all possible. If you've lost, and I've been involved in management teams that have lost, the main thing then is to circle the wagons. You get back. What's the next round? How do we plan? What way are we going approaching it? And you just get everyone, the players, and pull them together and get everyone on the same page. And that's what Gort are going to have to do this week. Like there's still really good players on that Gort team, like Jack Grealish, Gavin Lally, Ben O'Donovan. You know what I mean? Paddy Commons is back. Aidan Helleber, Richie Cummins. Like there's good players on that Gort team. So they've just got to circle the wagons now, get back into it, and get on with it for the next round. And I've no doubt they'll do that. You know what I mean? Gort are a really proud club, and they're not going to go back. Thomas is probably, when the groups were made, I'd say everyone would say probably Thomas's were going to be number one, and then it was a battle for the rest of them for who was going to be 2, 3, and 4. And it's no different after round one. It's still going to be that way. Round two might tell us a little bit more, but it's still going to be that way. So 2 good wins in the group for Thomas's, and then you had Athenry as well chipping in with a really good win.
Yeah, Athenry, you mentioned there 125, Mike Cullen 214. Athenry, I have them at 11 on my rankings, and I had them lower down last week, but that was just coming up from Senior B. I've moved them up 3 places this week. They still are
Yeah,
a team for Senior B, so that's obviously, I feel I will be moving them up as this championship goes on. Because even if you look at the weekend, Killian Lawless, obviously the key there, 7 points from play, really impressive. Owen Lawless good at 6, but like this Athenry team, like if you're looking for a bolt or a dark horse that's probably not in that top category that can, I suppose, expect a challenge straight away. You definitely feel like they can cause a few upsets in this championship.
absolutely. And in fairness to Athenry, they have a really good management team. So I'm not surprised with the display Athenry put in this weekend, because Niall Sunderland has been there for a few years with different teams in Athenry, and anytime I see his name beside an Athenry team, there's normally they win something, right? And then you add into that John Hardiman, who's a really experienced coach. He knows how to get the best out of teams. He's been around the club scene in Galway. He's been around the juvenile and minor teams. He was involved at senior level. So he's a really good coach, and he has them playing a lovely brand of hurling. And even last year, when they won the Senior B, I wasn't one bit surprised. And when I went up the county final, and really good brand of hurling. They're really tight at the back. They protect the D. They move the ball through the lines well. And like, you have to take, the weekend was a really impressive display, considering last year for me, one of the key men in the Senior B final, and he got a lot of stick, was Jason Rabbit. Wasn't even togged out, wasn't wasn't there on the weekend, and didn't play for Athenry. So like, he would have been a loss if you were telling Mike Cullen beforehand and they seen Jason Rabbit weren't on. They were probably saying, "Hey, this is actually good news for us." But the rest of them stepped up. Keane Burke, I think, scored 110, 111.
1-9, yeah.
Shane Quirk had a really good, showed leadership as the captain in the first half when they needed it. And, they have a really good goalie in Paddy Rabbit. They're solid. Jack Carr, big man, great puck out target. So, like, that Athenry team is good. Ronan Hardiman, they're really, really good players. So I wasn't surprised with the result. I thought it might have been a little bit closer from the point of view of John Hardiman had been with Mike Cullen, and there's always that edge. But, like, in fairness to Mike Cullen, there's one thing is they're a battler, and there'll be a result here in this group for Mike Cullen, because they're always really good. Like, Keane Folling came back from Australia, won some really good ball. Fionn McDonough was missing. Like, Fionn McDonough would be huge loss to that Mike Cullen team now,
Yeah.
Presence, experience, and things like that. So, when you take that into account, I think that the result was fair, but by all accounts, Athenry played some lovely hurling, and sets them up nicely for this group now, And for me as well, I agree with you, Paul. I see Athenry being a team that down the line, that definitely, if they keep their heads working hard as a squad, I can definitely see them getting out of the group, making a preliminary quarter final, or going even a bit further, and that's great to see. They have some great young teams, players coming behind, some great teams coming. So Athenry do need to be knocking on the door now again, and it's great to see them back like that.
Do you think this group, Gerry, could nearly form into, say, a 2 and a 2, that you sort of have Athenry and Thomas's now? Well,
Yeah,
Athenry could see that as a free shot really against Thomas's, nothing to lose. They'll be underdogs going into that one. And Mike
yeah.
Cullen and Gort, having lost one, they're nearly, like, that's the big game now for them.
Yeah, it is. Like, Thomas's have Mike Cullen, I think, next, is it? And then
Yeah.
Athenry and Gort. So I think it working out in that, you'd be looking in. Gort, I'm sure, will seriously target that Athenry game. But if Athenry were to get a win in that, then you're talking about, and Thomas's get a win in their game. You're talking about Athenry and Thomas's having a shootout on the last day to see who tops the group. And then you're talking about Gort and Mike Cullen having a shootout to see who's going to finish third and fourth. So, like, this group, despite people saying, "Oh, well, Thomas's will be the clear leaders," there could be lots of twists and turns yet. And isn't that the beauty of the championship? There's going to be 3 interesting rounds here. And like, that's all we can ask for. Competitive, honest endeavour across 3 rounds of the groups. You won't get it in every group, but you know, this group, everyone looked at it, but I think you're going to get it in this group, to be fair, the way it's transpired after the weekend.
If we look at Group 2 then, Gerry, Loughrea 119, Kilconieron 18 points. I don't want to be insulting here, Danton, for Kilconieron, but given they weren't given a chance in this game, and to be honest, I thought Loughrea were going to have too much here.
Yeah.
Is Kilconieron's performance against Loughrea the performance of the weekend?
Yeah, listen, you could definitely say that. You could definitely say that, but for them, there'll be no moral victories. At the end of the day, they still lost the game, right? And for Loughrea, you know, so while you'd say it's the performance of the weekend and introducing 4 minors from last year, you know, fair play to the management team, James Burke and like Colin Lynch is in there. So like with Colin Lynch in there, they're bound to be organised. They're bound to be ready for the game. There's a bit of know-how. They're going to be fired up, and they had nothing to lose. So again, it was a bit like the Galway Camogie. They went into it. They have really good players. You know what I mean? Eamon McGlynn played well. Ulta McGlynn played well. Oscar O'Gorman. You know, Shane Murray's a good goalkeeper. Peter Martin is a good fullback, played really well last year. So I think the things are real positive. And I said this, I think, last year, that I see Kilconieron as definitely an up-and-coming team. I think that's a good display in the first round, but it'll be no good for Kilconieron if they don't win the second round. That's their target now. So I think that they'll target that now to try and win their second round. And then you have Loughrea. They still won. They have 2 points on the board. I think Tommy Kelly, he mightn't be happy with some aspects of it, but they're up and running, county champions. It's not easy to get back. There's a few lads in with the county trying to get lads back. Great to see Martin McMahon is back again. I believe he got the goal. They had a few lads. Shane Morgan played really well. Ian Hanrahan again. Johnny Cohn in at full back. Garros Luckna. You know, they're really, really strong. Tiernan again. You know, they're really, really strong. I think Anthony Burns came on as well. So, and they were without Shane O'Brien for this. So, like, again, they have lots of young lads into their squad from last year. And there's always a thing of, do you wait with the team that won you the cup, or do you make tweaks? And they're probably at that stage now where they're going through that. So they probably introduced a few lads the last day. How did that go for them? Gavin Maher, how did it go for the guys? Vince Morgan, I heard, was playing. You know, so they're introducing. So I still think Tommy Kelly will be happy. 2 points on the board. And for Kilconieron, there's a lot of positivity there. For me now, they just need to back that up in round 2. And if they can back that up in round 2, they need to get a result, be it a draw or win. Be fantastic to see. And again, with this thing, everyone, if you were ranking them, everyone at Kilconieron has no hopers in this group. I think now after the weekend, I think the other 2 teams, Craughwell and Kilnadeema, there'll be no one taking Kilconieron. They're all local derbies. There'll be no one taking them for granted. So I think there's a lot of hurling, a lot of interesting results ahead in this. So really looking forward to this group again. I think looking to see what happens, you know.
Is it a difficult one for Loughrea because everyone expects them to coast every game in this group, just given their county champions and their strong favourites to top this group? And then obviously people might look from the outside and might think Loughrea are a bit off. But the reason I still have them at number 1, they're still able to get through the weekend. As you mentioned, down a couple of players, still able to find a way through it. And I actually think for Loughrea to get a game like that this early in the year could be a positive in the long run.
I think, Paul, it's a nice wake-up call for Loughrea in round
Yeah.
1 of the championship. You know, as county champions, there's now a target on their back. They didn't have that this time last year when they played Craughwell in the first round. They were down a lot of bodies and they really had to dig in. Now there's a target on their back. The only thing that Loughrea have really going is they have a great panel of players, but they also have a really experienced management team. So their management team will be able to guide them through. I'm sure there's aspects of that there's loads of work-ons this week in training. So Gavin Keary, Shane Cusack, all that coaching team will be gathering them this week, getting through them work-ons and getting them ready for round 2 to be better again. And really, the key thing for all these groups is, can you get to the quarter-final unscathed, top your group, get to the quarter-final, and then you have break. You're not going preliminary quarter-final in that, so you get your break. That's what it's really all about. So Loughrea, 1 win, two more games, two more difficult enough games again. But, you know, I still think Loughrea will still have enough to get over the line in all them games.
If we look at the other game then, Gerry, in that group, Craughwell 320, Clanmerdale 217.
Yeah.
Even for Craughwell to get a win like this with Loughrea potentially coming in this, well, obviously coming in this group for them down the track, it's good to get the 2 points on the board early.
Yeah, definitely. Like, in fairness, coming up to this game, there was a lot of people writing Craughwell off, or I felt just reading the reports or even the previews and the papers coming up to it, or people and like were writing Craughwell off, and I couldn't really understand it because they've a fairly good they have a good management team. Ian Daniels is there, second year. Niall Healy is there. Keelan Green, Dave Dahi, who been in there. Like Dahi has been with a lot of clubs, was Gort manager, and has coached a lot of teams. So a really good pair of hands. And then you have really good players like Alan Canlan. Tomas Monaghan was standout performer of the weekend, but Tomas Monaghan is always a standout performer for Craughwell. So I'm not surprised for that. And they have good young players coming through. You have Tiernan Lean there. I know he got sent off late on because he got the 2 yellows, but like you have Jamie Ryan, really experienced, and Kieran Lean is there, played really well this year, good free taker. So you have loads of young players coming through there. So for me, it wasn't overly a surprise that they won. Maybe the margin, but a really good performance. But then if you take into it with Clanmerdale, I know they won the league, the Division 2 league, and I know they won that. But Craughwell were playing Division 1 hurling in the league, and that does make a difference. The standard is still that little bit faster, and you're playing better teams. And like Clanmerdale were without, I suppose, their leader as well, in Brian Concannon. He only came on halfway through the second half. So any team without a player the caliber of Brian Concannon is going to suffer. But you know, from watching it in the last few minutes, Brian Burke had 2 21-meter frees that if they'd gone in, because he has a powerful shot, and they were just saved. And Craughwell, it was just like they had a mentality they weren't going to be beaten on the day. And you know, 320 is still a really good score. Again, there's 2 points on the board to them. Lots of work to do. I think they have Kilconieron maybe next, so that'll be a tough game, local derby. And then you have Clanmerdale against Loughrea. There'll be nothing in that either. So, you know, again, really, really good games on there. And like if Declan Conley had played well, you know, like Clanmerdale did well, but just came up a little bit short. And that's probably the difference. Was Tom Monaghan was with 7 points. Brian Concannon came on, set up a goal, I think, and got a penalty. And it was just the difference. They had Tom Monaghan knocking over the 7 points. And in the end, I think there was 6 points. That's really what it came down to. Craughwell having their county player and Clanmerdale not. And that really is where for me, it came down to on the day.
Yeah, I think as well Adrian Prendergast, special mention to him too in the Craughwell attack. Really, really impressive. And I know he's kind of been in or around kind of Galway senior hurling squads. At the start of the year, we've never really seen him laid on and involved in championship action. So it might be interesting to see how his championship campaign progresses for Craughwell there. Um, Gerry, you're obviously a Turloughmore man.
Yeah.
Not many people predicted Clarinbridge 521, Turloughmore 126. Has the postmortems begun in Turloughmore yet?
Listen, what I'd say is there'll always be postmortems, but I think there needs to be a bit of reality as well when it comes to these sort of things, that it's round one. It's not like Clarinbridge are a really, really good team. They were semi-finalists last year. Turloughmore at the end of the day did score 126. That's really good scoring. There was passages of play that Turloughmore put through for an awful lot of that game that were really impressive. There was some around the middle, some really good playing through the lines. And the difference really was that Clarinbridge got the goals at the decisive time. And for me, Joshua Ryan was really impressive midfield. David Lee was really, really impressive, number 12. I was really impressed with him. Evan hit the freeze, and then Aaron Niland popped in with the 2 goals. Mikey Fallon came on and got the 5th goal. And, you know, the goals, as they say, goals win games, and that was the difference. And I suppose a little bit I would have felt maybe as the game went on, but definitely in the first half of it, I felt when it came down to the winning the battle in the middle third, I think Clarinbridge came out on top. And I wouldn't normally expect that against Turlough because they're normally really impressive in that middle third. But I have to give kudos to David Ford there and his management team. They really went after that middle third battle, and I think they won that middle third battle, and that to me was key because that set the platform. They had pulled out a bit as well on the puck outs. David Lee was going back. He was picking the breaks and he was taking them on. There seemed to be a lot of space as well. Good mention to Keane Salmon. I thought he was really impressive on the air for puck outs, a real good target. And if he didn't catch it, he knocked it in field to runners. And I think the goal Joshua got kind of came from a long ball that was knocked in and he came through the middle. So they were probably a little bit open and a little bit open in at the back. There was probably a bit too much space between Dara Welch and the full back line. And someone with Aaron Niland's pace, to be fair to him, when you get 1-on-1, there's no one better to finish a goal. I know he might be only 18, 19, but like in fairness to him, he is a goal poacher. And he got the space and it just opened up and the grass opened up in front of him. So listen, definitely, I'm sure Turloughmore management, they'll be circling the wagons. Darren O'Shaughnessy and Brian Holland and Paul Doolin. They'll be sitting down these. I'm sure they've sat down already, discussed it, and they've Nigel Shaughnessy in there as well. And they're experienced. They'll sit down with the players. And again, it's a matter now of you have to park these. And that's what I'd be saying to all the teams that lose in round one. Like I would always say, you need to get a win or a draw if you can. But if you lose in round one, your championship is not over. Yeah. Round two is what it is now. The Turloughmore have Castlegar in round two, really difficult game. They've Ardrahan in round three. All they can be thinking about for now, for the next 2 weeks, is Castlegar. That's all Castle will be thinking about is Turloughmore. And really then it's whoever puts on the best performance on the day. And it'll really come down to the will, the want, and who really wants to win that dirty ball. Because the Castle and Ardrahan game was a really tough, hard game of hurling. Fair, but hard game of hurling. And if Turlough were beaten in the middle third by Clarinbridge for a lot of that game, they're definitely going to have to look at the middle third battle. Can Turloughmore up it for the next game? Absolutely. They were in 2 years ago, and they can definitely up it.
Just on Clarinbridge, Gerry, because obviously we've all probably been guilty of saying, can Clarinbridge, I suppose, step up to the physical stakes? And it's something that they did do, obviously, against Turloughmore in that second half to turn it around. But then with that, like how much of a joy was it to watch Aaron Niland? I know it's against your own club, so maybe it's a bit of a different aspect, but could you really appreciate, I suppose, for Aaron to get back into that form? Because we've all know for, I suppose, 12 or 15 months, it has been really difficult for Aaron with injury.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I suppose I had the pleasure a couple of years ago coaching Aaron at under 16 level when Niall Canavan was the manager and I was involved. And like he was just a genius what he could do with the ball. Like we were playing most counties and Aaron was scoring kind of the minimum he was scoring a game was 210, in full forward. So like he's been watching. He was just so unlucky with injury last year. So unlucky. So and this is what Galway hurling needs. Galway hurling needs younger players coming through without putting too much pressure on them. And I'm not saying that they have to be on the senior team next year and they have to be doing that and not to be putting pressure in it. But Galway hurling needs the likes of Aaron to be coming through, the Sean Murphys to be coming through, Joshua Ryan's on the Clarinbridge team. The same way on the Turloughmore teams, you need the Killian Trayers to be coming through, the Killian Whelans, the Dan Loftuses, coming through. Conor Welch was outstanding the weekend. That's what Galway hurling needs to see. We need to see these players coming through and given, I suppose, the county management options, selections at all times. So it is a joy to watch Aaron go. He scored 2 goals. The brother is not relinquishing the frees. He's an unerring free taker as well. But Evan has probably won that battle in the household for the moment. But like if Evan wasn't going well on any day with the frees, Aaron is just a craftsman on the frees as well. So they're really well set up there. And like with Keane Salmon able to win that dirty ball and to hand that out to Aaron, I'd say that's like manna from heaven for Aaron, to be fair to him. Because he can't win his own ball as well. He's well able to. But if you have someone like Keane Salmon winning that, and then you have Mark Kennedy in the other corner, Clarinbridge have that weaponry up there this year that probably they didn't have last year.
Just on the other game then, Gerry, in that group, Castle just get over the line by the skin of their teeth. Ardrahan had big chances from Donagh and Keenan Fahy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, in fairness to in fairness to Ardrahan, they came in like down, I think it was Michael Walsh, and I think Derek was injured as well. Like they're two big losses for Ardrahan coming in. But like you wouldn't think that playing. Keenan was really impressive in midfield. Like I've talked to a lot of people over the weekend of kind of who were kind of standout performers, and most people, Keenan Fahey was coming up all the time in midfield there, you know, and it took all Castlegar's guys to get with him. But again, Castlegar, you know, Cher Farragher, he's just a joy to watch. He's just a fantastic club hurler. He keeps going. He's so pivotal for that Castlegar team because when you get a free, it's over. Greg Thomas as well, his aerial prowess was really, really evident the last day. So the two of them, Jack Kine obviously played well. Shaughnessy, the Castle are still, so it was a really good game. It was tough, a different game to the Turlough and Clarinbridge game, but it was really good game, and there was only a point in it. So like 22 points to 120, nothing in it. 22 points, 22 scores to 21. You had the thing with Joe O'Leary coaching Castlegar, and Ardrahan men played with Ardrahan and left everything on the field for Ardrahan, and he was in the opposite thing. So that couldn't have been an easy day for him either. But, you know, he was in the Castlegar corner, had to have that's his jersey for the day. And, you know, I'm sure he's happy they won it, but I'm sure he's wishing Ardrahan all the best in the next few rounds. So again, really good game, nothing in it. There'll be nothing in this group either. You know, the next few games as well, but round 2 is what it's about now. And it's how each team responds here. And there'll be nothing. Ardrahan Clarinbridge will be a really, really close game because Ardrahan won't fear down through the years. From memory, Ardrahan have never feared Clarinbridge. And I remember going back through the years, they have got the upper hand on a few occasions. So Ardrahan definitely won't fear Clarinbridge, but you just expect with the form Clarinbridge have come at early doors. And it was like Saturday was the battle of the last 2 league champions. And you have to say that Clarinbridge won that battle hands down. And well deserved it on the day.
At this current moment in time, are Clarinbridge your favourites to win the county title?
I wouldn't have them as my favourites to win the county title. I think you have them at third there at the moment, and that's probably where it is at the moment. I would still have them at third. Loughrea and Thomas's are still there thereabouts. So I wouldn't have them as outright favourites to win the county cup just yet. There's a lot of hurling to take place, but they're definitely going to be there. I would say minimum last 4, and they could definitely end up in a county final as well. Don't be surprised.
You talked there about Group 3 and anything could happen there. Come to Group 4, it's the exact same. Oranmore-Maree 219, Sarsfields 121. Oranmore-Maree really came of age at the weekend, even when things maybe weren't going their way. Took a few pot shots, probably not the right opportunities, but dug out a result. Playing Patrick Burke a sweeper as well at the weekend was interesting to see. But it's a big result for a young Oranmore-Maree team. Like you take Niall Burke and Garage McInerney out, it's a fairly young team outside of that.
Yeah, it's a really good young team, but in fairness to Ardmore over the last few years, they've been knocking at the door, and they're now going through bringing their youth through. So, like, if you take Ardmore, say even just this weekend, they won the senior, they won junior A against Ballinasloe, who've been really good over the last few years, and they're in the under 20 semi-final, which means that they don't have a game this Wednesday, so they won't have that, so they can have their full squad ready for the next round and prep. So they're bringing them players through now, you know, and they're gelling them with your Garage McInerneys and your Niall Burks, and like, but still, the Garage McInerneys and the Niall Burks still were really leading when they needed them on Friday evening as well. And like Niall was really impressive. He came out in front of the stand there, took a ball, trademark over the bar. They still need the likes of those going through, but they were impressive, really solid at the back. Really good set of backs. Colin Burke had 3 very good points from the middle of the field, well over 60 metres. Diarmuid Hannafy scored 1-1. Rory Burke was unerring from frees. And you had Ruben Davitt, very good. And Ryan O'Donnell got a goal and set up a goal. And I really like Ryan O'Donnell. Again, he's a guy that came through the academies and I was fortunate enough to coach him. And he's lively, he's zippy, he's always looking to do play the right ball. So Oranmore were really impressive for me on the weekend. And listen, they only got over the line, but winning the first round for them should give them massive confidence going in for the next 2 games in the championship. This is going to be a really tight group, Paul. So getting
Yeah.
2 points on the board early, I think, is massive. So that should give that team. Brian O'Connell, he's come in and I've looked at his management team. He's brought in people that have been there with the underage teams coming up along. And that's really important. So they know the strength and depth within that club, and they'll know them players. And there's a few lads that didn't get on the weekend that I think that as the championship go on, they quite possibly will get on. So I think they will get stronger. And I think they'll be satisfied going into training this week. There should definitely be a zip in Oranmore. Brian O'Connell is an experienced manager, and I'm sure he'll get them down, get them ready for the challenges ahead, because they have 2 big challenges ahead with Tommy Larkins and Cappataggle, and 2 games. But listen, what better way to test a young, hungry panel than having 2 tests like that? Like I'm sure they'll relish them games.
Just on Sarsfields, Kevin Cooney obviously has the opportunity, just comes up short at the end for Sarsfields at the weekend. But the loss of Alex Kinnear as well, he is a massive blow for that Sarsfields side.
Yeah, Alex Kinnear is a fantastic hurler, and you've looked at him over the last few years, and even there was 1 year there that Turlough bet Sarsfields in an under-20. It went to a replay, but he gave an exhibition of play midfield, wing forward. He zips up everywhere. He's always looking for it. The thing about him is that any team can't be afford to be without an Alex Kinnear. You know, he's always going to offer you something, and he's going to, because of his caliber, he's always going to take watching. So he just wasn't there the weekend. So it just didn't happen for lads around him. But I premise that by saying that, Paul, that this game, although you'd say Kevin Cooney had the chance, in fairness to young John Cosgrove, there was 2 points in it, and his ball zipped past the post. I mean, it literally skinned the post. So they could have gone up, and that was going into the last 5-10 minutes. That could have been a major turning point in that game. So these first round games in this group, especially, everything is real small margins. And for poor John Cosgrove, it just zipped past the post. That was the chance gone. Oranmore hung on. They get the 2 points. Sarsfields didn't. Do I think Sarsfields are out of this group? Absolutely not. There's loads of hurling left in this group. Sarsfields will regroup. There is no doubt. They have a really experienced management team as well. They'll regroup and get ready for the next round.
Just on the final senior game then, Gerry, a draw between Tommy Larkins and Cappy. You're obviously telling me this was one of the games you were at over the weekend, trying to get the games in. Real kind of intensity to this one, ends in dramatic circumstances. Carol Collins, the referee, obviously she lets Tommy Larkins have the play. Aina Murphy gets the ball out to Darren Duggan, who's in space, and as Duggan's about to shoot, she blows the full-time whistle. There was a few afters after this with the full-time whistle, which is one thing you don't really like to see teams doing, letting this sort of stuff carry on after the full-time whistle, and both teams have to settle for a draw then in the end.
Yeah, they do. Like, to be fair to Carol Collins, it was a tough enough game to referee. There was a lot of needle going on all sides in the game, but this is a local derby. These guys, both these teams have met in so many if you go back over the years, they're nearly meeting every year, if not every second year. You know, so they know each other so well. The teams lined up. You had Cappataggle, who were beaten in a county final last year. You have Tommy Larkins, who've taken big scalps the last 2 years. They beat St. Thomas's last year. They always target the first round. So coming out with a point each, like, what way would the management teams be? Would they be disappointed? Obviously, Tommy Larkins are aggrieved. If I was part of the Tommy Larkins management, would I have a bit of a grievance there? Probably. Absolutely. In fairness to Carol, I think overall he handled the whole game well. It's just the closeness. It's just no one wants to give an edge in this game in both clubs. I've been involved in it years ago when I was part of the Cappataggle management. And in fairness to Tommy Larkins, it normally is. It's a really good, hard game. it's always fair. There was a little bit of niggle. There was a lot of mouthing to Carl Collins. He flashed a few yellow cards for persistent mouthing during the game. But I was impressed by a lot of players in the game. Kevin McHugo, normally the 6, was in midfield. And to be fair, he scored, I think, maybe 1-8, 1-9. Was really, really impressive for me. Scored a goal. When James looks back at it, he might say, could he have got to it? But he scored a really good goal, and he was a leading light for them. Jason Flanagan was chipping in. Ronan Murphy played well, played a captain's part, but a bit quieter than normal for me. Mossy Lyons, Tomas Lyons, really good 2 points from play. Played really well. Cahill Tui and Jay Mannion had a great battle. I think Jay came out with 5 points, I think, from play. So, but in fairness, the battle on it was probably even enough. Bar Jay got it on the scoreboard, but Cahill, in fairness, it was a good game all the way through. It was a great battle. It was end-to-end stuff, and the intensity in the first half was really high, really, really high from both teams. And I think a point each, a fair result. In a group that's going to be this tight, every point is going to be valuable. So I'd say both management this week will be sitting down and say, right, we don't have a W on the board, but we don't have an L either. How now can we go on and prepare for our next games? And each of them games then are going to be tough, because each of these games are 1 or 2 point winner games. These are not games in this group, especially, that you're going to be any team winning by 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 points. These games are 1 or 2 pointers for me. So I think overall, Cappataggle will be happy. I suppose at the end, near the end, James Scahill, for me, pulled off an unbelievable save from Jason Flynn. It was 1-on-1. The ball bounced over, landed perfectly for Jason. Scahill came out and spread himself. Literally, Jason hit it on the money, and it just hit Scahill straight in on the body, and he had to go off afterwards. But for me, it was an unbelievable save, because Cappy were 2 points up at the moment at that time. And if that had gone in, they'd have been down a point. And I think Larkins had the momentum, they had the breeze. I think they'd have gone on. So for me, it was definitely the save of the weekend. I'm aware. I was told that James ended up in Portiuncula afterwards. So pass on good wishes, and hopefully he'll make a speedy recovery. But like it was a brilliant save, and Jason hit it as good. I think if you asked him, could he hit it any better? I don't think so. Bar going left and right of it, and I know they're both good friends from their time in the county. So I think there'll be a bit of slagging going on over the next few weeks over that, both the shot and the save.
Just before we leave then the senior action, Gerry, who's the team that impressed you most over the weekend, and who's the team that surprised you most over the weekend?
Team that impressed me most would be Clarinbridge, if I'm being fair. From what they did, I'd have to give them the kudos. I gave it in the game, not because they bet my own club. I think in the games I'd seen, they were the most impressive. They got their scores when it mattered. They won the main middle third battle. So for them, I would give them then. Then the next one is kind of surprised me. I'm probably going to go for a tie here. I'm going to cop out. I'm probably going to say Kilconieron and Oranmore. Everyone had written off Kilconieron, but they put it up. But Oranmore also, I was really, really, really impressed with Oranmore. And it's not they surprised me, but Sarsfields are always a really good championship team. And for Oranmore to come out winning that in round 1, that for me is a good omen. And then also for Kilconieron, where people were writing them off and probably having them down as relegation favourites. I think there's a lot out there now having second thoughts on that. So I think the two of them, I would actually, if that's allowed, give them as a joint surprise of the weekend for me.
Yeah, I presume Aaron Niland's performance of the weekend when it comes to senior championship.
Yeah, I think so. I would say when it comes down to the way he played and for youth and things like that and his movement, you'd have to give it to him. I would put out there as well from my own club, Conor Welsh, 16 points, an honourable mention. I think he was playing really, really well. I give it, but on performance and youth and going into it. And I think that's one of the things that struck me the weekend when any team in the senior that I had seen across senior A and senior B, any game I went to see, and even intermediate, the weekend I was at an intermediate game, any team that gave youth their chance, they weren't disappointed. And that for me is really encouraging, that teams are willing to give youth a chance coming out of minor and going. Years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. I think hurling is changing now, and I think it's the teams that are kind of the management and the managers that are saying, do you know what? We're going to give our youth here the chance. What have we got to lose? I think that's where we seen the weekend, whereby it came out, and that's where we got the performances from. They're in them teams.
If we look so, Gerry, at the Senior B, these Senior B rankings have just totally flipped from going on the results at the weekend. So, in first place, I have Ahacragh up 6 places. I think they're justified if you score 136. I
Yeah,
think you deserve that. Kilnadeema Leitrim in second. I think the manner of their victory over Teen Aberdeen, 322 to 314, quite impressive there. Ballinderreen, a terrific performance for them. Obviously against Lee Meadows, so they're up 3 places. Port Pierces overturning Mullagh, who are just down from the Senior Hurling Championship, in fourth place, up 4 places there. Then in fifth place, I have Portumna are there, but probably just about, and I think they will be concerned because if you look at it, it's 12 scores to 39 at the weekend, so or 12 scores to 37, shall I say? So that's definitely has to be a concern for them. In sixth place, Mullagh down 4 places, but like Davy Glennon and Connor Dolphin only came on in this game, so I think that
yeah,
has to be taken into consideration. Teen Aberdeen, they're down 2 places. They're beaten in that local derby by Kilnadeema Leitrim, and Lee Mellows there and bottom place, 8th place at the minute. Probably disappointed for them, considering David Collins into second year now with this group. I think they would have liked to start things on a high, and they're beaten by Ballinderreen, so they're down 5 places there. But um, it's going to be a tough championship to predict here, Jerry.
yeah. It's going to be a tough championship to predict, but I think that's the beauty for me this year for the senior B. I think the one thing about it is in the round one is there's no relegation from
Mm,
the senior B this year. So you're part of a senior. Last year, every team that was going out had the worry, if we don't do well in the first round, um, there's relegation straight away, and you're going into two, and there's a 3 games, and next thing then we're in a relegation final, and then you're down to that fear is gone this year. So for me, the hurling was a little bit more open. The scoring was a little bit more higher this year, and teams just seemed to go at it. And again, teams gave youth a chance, and they just went at it. And I think the results panned out that way the weekend. You know what I mean? So it didn't matter whether you were Mullagh down from senior, senior A last year. They were down a few players, as you said, Paul. Like in fairness, Davy Glennon or Connor Dolphin, like they're 2 massive losses to any team. So to
yeah,
not be able to start them, but at the same time, I suppose Pádraig Pearce's. I heard Cyril Farrell recently saying that he watched them the last 2 years and thought that they've been impressive enough or improving. So like that's high praise, and like to go out then for them and take the scalp of Mullagh, I think that's shown progress for them as a group as well. So that's good. Mellows are probably going to be disappointed. I wasn't at that game, but I think Ty Harron didn't play up to his usual standards. And I've always found over the years that if Tig is not because he sets the standard and he drives the standards for that team, and if he's not at the level that he probably expects and that Mellows expecting, the team don't always go as well. Adrian Morrissey really stepped up the weekend and showed great leadership. Ed O'Reilly at centre back as well. A few lads there, and like David Collins and like Shane Curley there. They're going to be awful disappointed with the result. But the only thing is that they've experience in that dressing room. Things have been going really well. They hurled in the Division 1, the league, did really well. The word is that the training was really good. Everyone was happy. They were driving forward. They were going in the right direction. And I suppose this is a blip and maybe a wake-up call for them. But kudos to Ballinderreen. People
yeah.
probably thought that, sure, Mellows, this is a banker for Mellows. But Ballinderreen last year turned over Pádraig Pearce's in the first round.
Considering what they've lost in the winter too, like Niall Cohn is a massive player for them to lose, and even looking at that result over the weekend, Roy Lane, Kevin Lane, Luke
Yeah.
Prendergast, really impressive in attack for them.
Yeah. Luke Prendergast, and I was just talking to someone about this today, and just to kind of get a little bit of information. Luke Prendergast, by all accounts, was outstanding the weekend. And isn't it great that the likes of the players they've lost, and then you've someone like Luke Prendergast stepping up, and then you have like Donnacha Ganley there, really good young player, but they're strong, like they are. Ballinderreen, they will always be and always be there at the end because they're a really good outfit and they work hard for each other and they're a really battling club. So I wasn't overly surprised by the result. Although I would have tipped Mellows, but I always felt it was going to be a close, and I didn't believe it
Mm.
was going to be as some people a banker for Mellows. I didn't actually believe that it was going to be a dead cert for Mellows. But and the other side of it is Adrian Morrissey, after winning the penalty, had the penalty saved. Michael Kelly pulled off in the first half, I believe, two, if not three, outstanding saves and pulled off that penalty save. So, like, you're talking, goalie has an outstanding day for Ballinderreen. It's small margins, a penalty saved, and he pulled off four outstanding saves. So we could be talking about Mellows there this evening winning this game 117, 116. Instead, due to an outstanding display from the goalkeeper, that doesn't happen. Plus Luke Prendergast up front. So listen, there's no doubt that David Collins, Shane Curley, and the management team will look at that Brian Rabbit. They'll be looking at it and saying, this it, it's bad for them today, or they feel that. But I think they have the experience in that dressing room to turn this around. They just need to go out. Now, it won't be easy because the way this group has panned out, you have the two winners meeting in the next round, and you have the two
Mm.
losers meeting. So you'll have the battle of the two green teams in that Mellows versus Teen Abidjaniri. I'm sure Teen Abidjaniri will be disappointed. Put up a really good score, but in fairness to Kilnadeema Leitrim, 322 is really impressive. 314 is not a bad score either, and I'm sure Matty Kinney, when he reflects on it, will say it's a good score. But Kilnadeema, people were writing them off, but the players they have in their ranks, I couldn't really understand it either. And they have a really good management team, and that's what it all comes about: getting your team ready for the first round of the championship. And Tina were coming promoted from last year, and I suppose Kilnadeema being here last year and had played really well last year in this championship, probably want to lay down the marker, being a local derby, and saying, listen, this is Senior B. We were here last year, and we just want to show what Senior B hurling is about. But again, you have to look at Mike Meall Power. Apparently had a good game the weekend. You've Paul Killeen there. You have Pádraig Breheny. You've Shane Maloney. That's a really experienced Teen Abidjanari squad. I'm really looking forward to Mellows and Teen Abidjanari in the next round. I think it's going to be a cracking game. This group is not by any means sorted yet after round one. And Kilnadeema and Ballinderreen again. That's going to be a really good game. Battle of the two winners. See how that goes. So, like, this is going to be a really tight group. And at this stage, I'd probably have Kilnadeema at this stage favourites to win the group. They'd be my favourites to win Group 1 anyway at this stage. But I'm not backing against Ballinderreen, who are battlers of in that next round against them either.
Yeah, Colin Malloy really good for Kilnadeema at the weekend. Jack Kenny too. So an impressive one for Kilnadeema, especially to get one over on their neighbours there at the weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe we haven't talked about Ahacragh that much here, but for me,
Yeah.
justifiably in top spot, 136, 16 different scores. It's really impressive. I said it during the rankings there. 37 scores to 12. It's definitely one of the most eye-catching results over the weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Like 136, they had 8 goal chances in that, so it could have been a lot more. Portumna had 6 goal chances during the game, scored 3-9. So, like, in fairness to Ahacragh not so long ago were in a senior A quarter final. So, like, teams don't become
Yeah.
bad overnight. They've changed it up. They were missing a few players last year. Sean Blaheen is back this year. He's a really good player. When you add in Sean Blaheen, Pádraig Mannion, Cathal Mannion, Noel Ward had a fantastic game at wing back the weekend. I think Luke Kennedy chipped in with 1-3. You know, they're Ahacragh are a really good team, really good management team. Jimmy Brown is experienced, bringing in his experience, involved in LIT. Then you've Brian Mahoney, who has been come up through the ranks in Loughrea, has been involved in Galway academies, is a really astute coach, and has brought his expertise there. Match that with Jimmy Brown, and the club are going in the right direction. So the Ahacragh have gone with a good setup all the way through. You have Cathal Mannion, who's all-star potential in your squad. You really all are going to be a serious threat and a serious force at Senior B. You have Porrick at the back, Cathal up front, Sean Blaheen in the middle, and then you have lads chipping in all over the place. So again, I think the performance of the weekend, definitely in Senior B, 136. Portumna will be disappointed. They scored 3-9. They left a lot of goals after them. Didn't go well for some lads. You know, Declan McLaughlin might be a bit disappointed with his performance. But the one thing about Portumna, and I've seen it last year in the county final against Athenry, they don't give up. There is goals in that Portumna forward line. And there is a serious goal threat. Again, Sean Tracy, Eugene McEntee, and Damien Coleman are an experienced management team. And like, they're going to have to circle the wagons now. They're going to have to get them back. Joe Canning is there. Again, a really, really unerring on freeze. I think might be Porrick Pearson's for them next. So they're going to sit down now and target that Porrick Pearson's game. And I know you'll say it's 37 to 12 scoring 18 points. It's 39 to 18. But at the same time, Portumna, there is scores in that forward. I still believe there's loads of scores in that Portumna forward line. But Ahacragh deservedly won, put in the performance of the weekend, have a management team there that can drive forward. Remember, it didn't go well for them last year, but they were beaten after a replay 2 years ago.
Yeah, against Mullagh, that cracker.
Yeah, so people forget they were quarterfinalists Senior A not so long ago. They were beaten after a replay, unlucky probably in the county final replay. I was at that game. First game was really exciting, and you know, unlucky in the Mullagh just won it on merit, but they were unlucky in that. So, and then it just didn't go their way last year. But really good management team. So I wasn't too disappointed. Probably the margin surprised me. I'll be straight up with you, Paul. There's no point in me lying. The margin surprised me, but the result, as in Ahacragh winning, that definitely didn't surprise me. Not at all. Not at all.
And just finally on Senior B before we go on to intermediate, Gerry, Pierce's get over the line, get enough done in the end, 316 to 119 against Mullagh. Good result there. Joanna Donlan, impressive. Jack Barrett, Oisin Flannery, all coming up with key scores for Pierce's here at the weekends, and the Fahy brothers as well in attack, very impressive. But this sets Pierce's up nicely now too, getting a result like this in this group.
Yeah, well, I suppose in fairness to Pierce's, like they have at the moment, or they seem to have on paper, a good mix of youth and experience. And like this was a big game for Pierce's, looking at it from the outside. Their stalwart goalkeeper has departed and is in Perth at the moment in Australia, Fergal Flannery. Very hard to replace someone like that. So it was a big game for Harry Mitchell. And like to come in and only concede one goal, I feel myself is impressive. A few puck outs went astray, but that's going to happen. But that was really impressive. But again, for all Pierce's, when it came down to winning the game, it came down to their experienced men on the team. Emmett Ward, Tom Flannery came on and won a penalty. Emmett Ward stuck 2 penalties. So they have a good mix of youth and experience. Again, the management team is there from last year. So Shane Raftery, Sarah Donlan, Cormac Ward, excellent on S&C. Willie Deline is in this year. Keith Donlan is there. And, you know, you have Cormac, and then you have Cyril Donlan. And Cyril, I believe, like after coming with Galway doing the goalkeeping, done a lot of work with Harry. So they have a good team coming through. Probably felt last year they should have got a result in the first round. But again, Ballinderreen took the honours on the day. So I think for that group, I think they'll feel it was a big game for them going into it, because you're playing Mullagh. And as you said, they came down from Senior B. So everyone would have expected when you seen the rankings, not your own rankings, but I was looking at another commentator's rankings on this group, and Pierce's were last. So I had no doubt that the management were circling the wagon there and saying, like, we're ranked last year, lads. So, we need to stand up here. There's good hurlers within that group. And Oran Burke didn't play the weekend. He's a good hurler, carrying a knock. They have a few more lads there in the subs coming through. And Jonah Donlan, really around the middle third, kind of stood up. And that's the sort of youth that they're bringing in. Luke Mitchell as well, Dean Riley. These guys are not bad hurlers. But you have to look at Mullagh. If you were Gerry Spellman, you'd probably be disappointed you're lost. But if you're Gerry Spellman and you can't start Davy Glennon and you can't start Conor Dolphin, like, they're two mainstays of that Mullagh team going back through the years. Ronan Glennon had a really good game by all accounts, and he marshaled and did what he had to do. He was really good. You had Liam Curley, really good, and was zipping around, and by all accounts gave that full back line and Pierce's plenty to think about. I think he was taken off with a few minutes to go, but was really good in getting them there. And Adam Rock, Sean Hardiman had a really good game at 6 as well. Dean Finnerty. So, like, Mullagh would be disappointed, but, like, if they can get Davy Glennon back on the pitch and they can get Conor Dolphin back on the pitch, they'll still have a good say in this championship. So, like, they've lost to Pierce's, but, like, when you're talking about they lost to Pierce's, but on 28 minutes, it was a draw game. On the 28th minute of the second half, it was a draw game. And then Pierce's got a penalty. And I think below that, Mullagh could have gone one up. Pierce's missed a free in front of the goal, or a play in front of the goal should have gone. And then a high ball came in. Tomas Flannery landed in front of him, used all his experience in guile, had the ball snapped, and Paddy Hardiman came out and fouled him. And Tomas Flannery's experience. And then Emmett Ward, the second penalty. What do you do with the second penalty? Do you go the same as the first one? So they had the first penalty in the 5th minute, second penalty in the last few minutes, and he nailed them in different spots, but scored 2 penalties. So I think Pierce's will be happy, but at the same time, they have to turn around now, and they're playing a dangerous Portumna team in the next round. And Portumna will target Pierce's. So I know you might say in the scores and you're looking at it, but when you have a team as hot as Ahacragh and they score that, and a team with Portumna when they look at it 3-9, and I do believe there's goals in that Portumna team. They created 6 chances. They scored 3. Ahacragh created 8, took one of their chances for goals. So there's goals in that Portumna team. I don't care. Declan McLaughlin, Joe Canning, Ronan O'Mara, you have Andrew Canning there. You know what I mean? They definitely, Jack Canning and Martin Dolphin would be a loss for that Portumna squad. They definitely would be a loss for them, because in fairness to Martin Dolphin, he was always really good, held that 6th position really good. Jack Canning, then, if you had Jack, you had the option of playing Jack at 6 to replace Martin. They don't have that option now. They also had him up front, like last year in the county final. They targeted him with the puck outs, and Athenry changed 2 or 3 lads on him because he's a handful. You could push him to 14. So not having that threat is probably a downfall for Portumna. But again, I think that they will target Pierce's now. But it's great for Pierce's having 2 points on the board. Ahacragh as well, and now the 2 teams that don't, then the next game. And, like, Ahacragh scored 136. Mullagh are going into that game now as massive underdogs. They might have come down for Senior A, and Gerry Spellman has been there and done that with different clubs. You might remember a few years ago when he was training Oranmore, he got a victory out against about the same against his own club, Clarinbridge, that we were talking about a few years ago. He took an Oranmore team to beat his own club team. So Gerry Spellman will know how to set up a team. He has good guys in his management team. You have Ray Joanne, you have Kevin Briscoe. If they can get Davy Glennon and Conor Dolphin back on the pitch, and they can get everyone right for 2 weeks' time and get their best 15 on that pitch, I think they will give Ahacragh a good game. You would have to think Ahacragh should be winning that game. But for Ahacragh now and their management team, how do they approach round 1 as the players? How do the leaders in that group bring them group of players back down to earth. Because when you score 126, can't get much better than that. Like if I was involved in that team, it can't get much better.
Yeah.
They shut the lights out. What are you going to do? Your call manager will always do it. What happens if Mullagh come and bring an intensity the next day and they're not getting them scores and they're not taking them points? What's that's going to do? It's a repeat of the final. Mullagh bet them in that final after a replay. So maybe Mullagh might feel we don't fear Ahacragh. There's always teams in this group that you look at and you go, well, they don't fear them, even if they're very good. So I'm looking on that as a really intriguing battle the next day. So Mullagh are definitely not gone from this championship, despite losing to Pierces. And they were in that game right up until nearly into injury time. So again, nothing in this group. There was 2 points in it in the end. Nothing in the group either.
Yeah, and I actually had Pearson starting at bottom, so it just shows how that can flip. If it
Yeah.
comes to intermediate, and I'm gonna take a bit of credit here. I have Ballygar first, they're remaining in first, 6 goals at the weekend. Impressive
Yeah.
again. So they're first, Kinvara second, tied early on, but like really impressive the way they finished against Annadown. Carramore up 1 place after a big win over Clymer. Meath Aircourt down 1 place. They had a big victory over Athenry too. Got over Kilbacon in the local derby. They're fifth. Scannon Montbellier with a narrow victory over Ceylon in what sounded like a thriller in Tuam Stadium on Saturday. And then the team that bet Ceylon remain in seventh. Clymer eighth, probably disappointed with their 7 point defeat to Cairnmore. Turloughmore, they're in ninth place and probably will feel disappointed considering they led against Rahul Newcastle going into the closing stages. Rahul Newcastle with all that character they showed, they're up 1 place. And then 11th, and probably the biggest result in the Intermediate Championship over the weekend, Craughwell up 3 places after beating Abbeyknockmoy, which is very impressive for their second team. Abbeyknockmoy, they're down 2 places in 12th. Athenry down 1 place after losing to Mullagh Aircourt. Clarinbridge, very heavy defeat for them against Ballygar. They're in 14th place, down 1 place. Annadown remain in 15th, a heavy defeat for them against Kinvara. And Kilbacon remain in bottom place after their defeat to Beha. If we look at Group 1 first, Gerry,
Yeah.
probably the game of the weekend when it came to the Intermediate Championship, Scannon Montbellier and Ceylon. It ebbed and flowed, and probably just the sending off for Gary O'Neill for Ceylon in the end. It just proved to be the difference here.
Yeah, the sending off for Gary O'Neill probably was the difference in the end. Like, by all accounts, this was a humdinger. I was going from one pitch to another on Saturday and I was listening to it. And in fairness, as they were going over, there was nothing between it. There was goals flowing in, there was hard hitting, there was, it was by all accounts a really enjoyable game up and down the field. I think there's a few decisions maybe Ceylon would have felt aggrieved with by all accounts in refereeing decisions that maybe went against them. But you're going to get that in championship. But the one thing about it is that it was a really good game from start to finish. And Skahana Montbellier have been going really, really well under Desi O'Brien. And the one thing any team that Desi O'Brien manages is that they'll be well organised, they'll be up for the battle, and that they will make sure they're winning those 50-50 ruck balls, and there'll be nothing given, nothing asked. And in fairness to them, they have quality throughout their squad. And Sean Hansbury had a good game during the weekend. Jason Fahey had a good game. Dean Cunningham, Jack Jordan. You've Tiernan Lohan, you've Ger Flav, an excellent free taker. And then when you have Oisin Lohan there as well, like they have a really, really good group of players and a good structure. And Ceylon would probably be a bit disappointed. But the other side of it, Paul, you have to look at from Ceylon's viewpoint. They were in it right up until the very end. I think it was a goal that was scrambled over probably in the first or second minute of injury time that put a bit of daylight in it. But right up until that, Ceylon were there, and that's what a man sent off. So you have to give them massive credit that they stuck in it. And I'm sure that the management will be sitting down now looking at ahead for their Athenry game. How are they going to approach that? Get their players back. The Newells played well, went after it. Sean Newell scored a really good goal by all accounts. So it ebbed and flowed. And that's all you can ask for. But by all accounts, from listening to anyone, I've talked to a few that were at the games in Tuam the weekend, and someone that was there that was involved in the second game, and they said this was a really good game from end to end, and even the commentary that was on Galway Bay, that mirrored it as well.
For Silo now, I know he can't really fall into this danger, but does it become something you nearly start thinking of? Because obviously Athenry, they have to get a win there to keep
Yeah,
themselves on track. But there's a Mealich Aircourt game coming here, and if Scahan Montbelly were to beat Mealich Aircourt, the Silo Mealich Aircourt game would obviously double up. The second place would obviously be into preliminary quarter final, and they get the third place if that's the way the group worked. But
yeah.
it would also be a game in which whoever wins between those two clubs are a Premier Intermediate club, and whoever loses will be a junior club.
Yeah, that is the big fear, the big pressure, I suppose, for the clubs this year in the intermediate. Are you going to go up to the new Senior B next year, where 8 teams are going to get promoted, and you're going to go in with your 8 Senior B teams that are there, the team be promoted from Senior B up, and whoever comes down from Senior A. So you're going to have 16 a new championship Premier Intermediate next year, and then if you're not in that, then you're down in kind of Premier Junior, which I suppose in all due count is Junior A. So that is a massive prize. So the way it is I suppose that last game is going to be vital. Ceylon need to get a result against Athenry to put themselves into contention for third spot, number 1 for this championship, this intermediate championship. But then that game against Mealich Aircourt, especially if Skibellia were to beat Mealich Aircourt, that game then is really going to be intriguing. It's everything on the line. And like, what more would you want
You
for
could
a
even you could even have 3 teams here on 4 points, and that's not discounting Athenry. Like they
no,
still could have a massive part to play in this. I know they even had goal chances against Mealich. I think this is the one group where it's ultra competitive with all 4 teams here.
yeah, and like this Athenry team have a lot of experience, but they're bringing through their youth. They have a lot of youth coming through. John Grealish was outstanding, I believe, the weekend. You have the likes of Rona McGlynn, Aina McDonough, Mark Hannon, Colin Higgins. You have lots of lads, Mickey Mullins, James Deviney. You have lots of lads there that are good players. They won the Junior A last year on merit. I was at the county final when they beat Loughrea. They won it on merit. They were really, really good. Jack McCullough, I think, got man the match in that day. Was really impressive. Owned on it. So, but they come up against an intermediate team that are a seasoned intermediate team in Mealich Aircourt. So you had the young guns versus probably the experience, and that just is the reason for me that Mealich Aircourt won. Aircourt now are up against Skibellia in the next round. That'll be a real tough game, and whoever wins that, so if Skibellia win it, then it's Aircourt and Ceylon in the shootout. If they don't, then Ceylon, if Ceylon win that game, they still have to, regardless of what happens here, Ceylon are still going to have to beat Mealich Aircourt to stay have a say as in the Senior B for next year or get promoted. So I just think it's fascinating for them clubs going through. But again, they've experienced management team like Ceylon with Ronan Higgins there, like they have Joe Hessian and Brian Higgins, and I suppose Brian Higgins will be going up against his former club in the next round. So that'll be interesting for him, an interesting side show for him. And then they'll know how to set the team up, and they'll be hoping that they can get a result against Airport.
If we just look at Group 2 then, Gerry, really impressive from Carmore 21-14. Mark Collins really impressive in front of the posts there. And then if you look at Craughwell, I was only chatting to someone from Craughwell, and they were saying that 12 of the starting 15 were under the age of 24 for them in their victory over Avinock-Moyne.
Yeah, like really impressive for the two winners. Like we take Craughwell first. Craughwell have a really good young players coming through, and they've had over the last few years. And even when Turloughmore were winning, the fail is coming through 15, 16. So last year's 20 team, Craughwell were always there or thereabouts with them all the way up along. They have really good players. So I'm not surprised that these young players are coming through now onto this team and are, that they have a good intermediate team. And again, I'm sure it gave this intermediate squad massive belief with seeing their seniors, and they were probably a lot of them part and togged out on Saturday, seeing their seniors win on Saturday. Like people don't rely, especially with a second team, to see your first team win like that. It gives you massive belief going out. So, and they were taking on an Abbenackmoy team by all accounts. The two Flahertys, Brian and Paul, did not play in football this year, putting everything in. A massive effort has gone into this Abbenackmoy team. I believe anyone that should be playing hurling in Abbenackmoy this year is playing hurling. So that's massive kudos to them. So I'd say they'd be a bit disappointed. They'll be a bit disappointed now that they didn't get over the line. I wouldn't say they took Craughwell for granted, but did they take an eye off because it was Craughwell's second team? I can't answer that. I wasn't in that Abbenackmoy dressing room, but like Craughwell, in fairness to them, won it fair and square by all accounts. Anyone that I was talking to that was at the game said that they won it fair and square on the field. So well done to them. And then Carmore, really impressive. Mark Collins was impressive. Ronan Kilnadeema, I believe, 5 points from play. I think Mark Collins was something like 12 points as well, 17 points out of their total. So really impressive for them. Kilnadeema probably a little bit disappointed with how it started for them, but like in fairness to Carmore, they had the form, as in they beat them last year in the quarter-final. I was at that game in Athenry. Carmore fully deserved it. I actually thought there'd be a lot more goals in this game, if I'm being honest, because it was a bit of a goal fest last year. Really good game. I thought there'd be a few more goals, but they let me down. But I'm glad I didn't have any money in the bookies on goals for this game anyway. So I'm happy. I still have a few euros in my pocket on that anyway. But Carmore, I'm not surprised. Carmore again, for an intermediate squad. Kevin Killee is there, really good. Into Collins fullback, Mark Grealish teams. They're really good team coming through. Mark Lynn in midfield. You know, they have a good squad. Ronan Killee, Conor Flaherty, and they have a good young lads coming through that they probably haven't introduced fully yet. You have the likes of Owen Collins, they haven't seen him yet. Ryan O'Connell is there. Ben Morley, Luke O'Connor playing football. I'm not sure he played the weekend. They've Carl Fay. They have good teams, so they have a good bit of youth and experience. So Jackie Welch, in fairness to him, is a really experienced manager. He's been around a good while managing teams, and he's getting the best at the moment out of this group of players. So I'd be saying that, but again, Carmore and Abbey will be a local derby. Carmore and played Craughwell, I believe, last year as well. There was not much in that, and Carmore found it hard enough to scrape over the line against them. Craughwell have improved this year, so that'll be a battle. So there's loads of battles yet in this game, and I'm sure Kilnadeema are going to bounce back. Aidan Ryan will have to come up against his own club, Craughwell. So there'll be loads. Neither will want to lose that game. I'm sure the Craughwell management or the Craughwell players won't want to lose to Aidan, and Aidan won't want to lose to Craughwell. So I think there's loads of intrigue as this group is to finish out as well. But two worthy winners over the weekend, and well done to them.
Gerry, when it comes to Group 3, Ballygar 619, Clarinbridge 16 points, Kinvara 423, Annadown 211. Two big wins, I'd argue, for the two favourites for the Intermediate Championship at the minute.
Yeah, two big wins, but I probably think, to be fair, if you were to ask me before the game, if I was on previewing these, they'd be expected enough wins. Ballygar have been going really well. I know they lost the league final to Scavelliu, but like, to be fair to
Clonmerdaley.
Apologies. So like, if you look at it, the level they were playing this year, they were getting games against really good quality opposition. You know, so they were playing teams that were playing Senior A or Senior B, and they were playing them consistently, and they reached the final. So to be fair to them, they're there on merits. They've been improving year on year. You have to say that about them. They have good lads coming through. You take Joey Wallace, he's coming through. He's now the leader. He's now the captain. But look at Harry Holmes. You know, Harry will come in. You've Cathal Maloney. You know,
they were the two standout performers at the weekend as well.
Yeah, and like they're standout performers, but they've been standout performers at minor level, at under 16 level for Galway coming through. So it's no surprise, the same with Joey was, it's no surprise that they're standout performers for Ballygar. And Ballygar are introducing these young lads through. So fantastic to see that. And delighted that they're bringing their county form back to the club. And like Ballygar have been doing massive work over the last few years in their youth. There was one year there they won the under 16A championship, which is massive. Kudos to them, and they're bringing through them players now, and even at underage, they really are playing at the A's and the A1s in grades, and they need to be and to push on. But this is a tough group. Kinvara winning the weekend, I would have expected that. Down, to be fair to them, have lost a few players. Liam
Yeah.
Murphy would be a huge loss for them in my book. Over the last few years, I know I was involved with Turlough Intermediates there 2 years ago, and he broke my heart below and Choom. He was just everywhere, and he was brilliant, to be fair. So he would be a big loss. But you know what? They actually started really well in this game, and they had 2 goals. Gerry Kilcommons was really good, started off really good. Um, they started off really, really well, and it just at the end, Kinvara's experience came through, and there was a period in the first half, where there was only 2 points in this game, and then Kinvara just went on a kind of a scoring burst, and there was kind of 10 to 12 points in it at half time. To be fair to any team, if you're missing or Sean a few of your players, your better players, then it's very hard to get your head up for the second half on that one. So listen, for Kinvara, an expected win. They'll be happy with it. Luca Danju played well on it. Ty Heavey at 6 played really well. Larkin Heavey. They like the guys there, Dara Hallibert, Connor Whelan, obviously. Like you're talking about Connor Whelan. In fairness, down, they just wouldn't have anyone at that level to mark, and even they probably sacrifice a really good player out the field, or probably to play to mark Connor Whelan. So Connor is the captain this year. I think Kinvara are a team on a mission for me on intermediate this year. They want to get up to senior B as champions, and I think they're on a mission. They have a good management team. Michael Helbert's a good manager. He's shrewd. He's a good backroom team with him. They will look at this now as they lost the county final last year narrowly. They'll expect to put in a performance. The game of the round here will be themselves and Ballygar. That'll be a really, really good game. Down, while they didn't win this game, playing Clarinbridge, really hard for Clarinbridge, although they had a good few senior players on that Aaron Bindon saying goal. You have Oscar Fitzpatrick wing back. They still had experience, but again, to be fair, their best players are going to be with the senior group, and the second team, it's always harder. Again, last year they probably started off. They might have used 1 or 2 on Saturday evening that maybe they didn't want to, and that'll weaken it. They could have had lads away. I'm not sure, but again, you're coming up against a Ballygar team that are coming in experienced, and in fairness to Clarinbridge, they just wouldn't have had the experience. They're a youngish team. They wouldn't have had the experience to take on the guile of Ballygar, and then Ballygar thrown in their youth again. They just had it. Down, they'll obviously be disappointed. Liam Gordon will be disappointed. But again, they will sit down and look at it and see, right, didn't get over the line. They've played the best team, I would say, in this group. Ballygar might disagree with me. That'll be an intriguing game. But Ballygar but Down, I think, will target the Clarinbridge game. That's a game I think that they can target to win. Whether they do, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a game where they can go in with a realistic chance of having a right cut at it. And in a 2-horse race, I don't care what anyone says, if you can get your team in the right mindset to go at it and go with the challenge. You take the Galway Camogie team yesterday, it's the perfect example. Everyone wrote them off. If Down can get their mindset right, get 1 or 2 players back, they have a few players playing football that I'm sure they'd love to have. So I don't know what way the Clarinbridge game comes in the group, but I think Down will target that game, and that'll be a shootout for Clarinbridge as well. So one will end up in the preliminary quarterfinal. So yeah, it's all to play for here.
Just in Group 4 then, Gerry, Bertie Kane in inspirational form for Rahu Newcastle, 2-7 out of Rahu Newcastle's 3-11 in the draw against Turloughmore. I think if any members of this Turloughmore intermediate team are listening to the podcast currently, at this present moment in time. I think they probably will be devastated with that result because they seem to be in control, and Rahoon just came right back at the end. And then the other game, Beha 124, Kilbacon 112, and Beha, it's the ideal start for Beha, obviously getting relegated from Senior B to get the intermediate campaign off to a bright start.
Yeah, no, I think it was important for Beha, especially to lay down a marker in this group that they're here to mean business as well. You know, like they got relegated last year, narrowly. I'm sure they were really competitive in Senior B. There was nothing in any of them games last year. I'm sure they had their stall set out. We're going targeting this. They still have their same warriors, in fairness, Adrian Toohey, Joe Gantley. You know, they're adding in a few younger lads as well, Sean O'Loughlin. They still have Dave Landers there. You know, they're Evan Hunt. They're really, really good. Stephen Dibney in goal. They went at Kilbacon, and, you know, in fairness, Kilbacon, probably looking at it, probably would be a little bit disappointed, but probably feel that there's other teams in this group that they can target to get a win. So while they'll be disappointed, no, I'm no doubt Mike Finn will be disappointed in his management team that they've lost the game. I think that if you're a betting man, you probably have said that Beha probably would be stronger here on that. So and were deserved winners on the day. So listen, the result went as most people have expected, but Beha or Kilbacon will still have a say in this group because the two games. I was at the other game yesterday. Really, really entertaining game. As you said, Bertie Keane was on really good, but Daniel Hughes actually played really well on him. And I know you might say he scored 2-7 or 2-8. God, he did. But like Daniel Hughes had a really good game on him. It was a really good tussle. It was fascinating to see. Michael Morris was really good. James Burke in the full back line for Turlough was really good. Michael Morris especially. He carried the fight to them. Garrett Fahey, Mike. Luke Williams then played wing back. Ethan O'Brien got on a bit of ball. Ryan Rabbit was really impressive for Turloughmore, especially from the frees. He hit some cracking frees. Patrick O'Kane, young guy, first year up, scored, came out with 2 points. Tom Nolan and Owen Keneally started centre forward. And Jack Kelly had a good enough game. Turlough will be kicking themselves. They were probably 6 points up, 4 to 6 points up going down the home stretch. For me, the turning of the game, and I turned to a mate of mine that was beside me, and I said, this could be the turning of the game now. Rahum Braham, Willie Mackey. And the one thing I've watched Willie Mackey over the years, the one thing he brings into any team, into the ground team when he comes in, is he always brings that bit of guile, but he brings consternation. And he just went in, and while he didn't get on the score sheet, he just was a disruptor in that full forward line for Rahum. And to be fair to him, he won the penalty. He then set up the goal because he won a high ball. In both instances, Turlough had the ball and were in control going out, and Rahun turned them over. It got worked back in. Willie did, I suppose, a bit of magic in there, and Bertie finished the penalty well because Mark Fahey had playing really well. He won the league in goal for the Turlough seniors and had played outstandingly well, and is a really good penalty stopper. But Bertie stuck it really, really well. And then the second goal, last shot of the game, shot across Mark Fahey's bow and buried it, and they got the draw. Overall, over the 60 minutes, Turlough will no doubt be disappointed. There's definitely that. But I think they can be proud of their display on the day. And I think Rahun will realise they got out of jail, and they'll definitely need to up it for the next game. I think Rahun play Kilbacon next. But again, they both have a point on the board. And as I said, it's always good to get a point on the board. So listen, both teams have to play Kilbacon yet. So I suppose they'll all both try and target Kilbacon for a win. But there's nothing, because Turlough could play Kilbacon in recent years. There's literally been a point or two in each of them games. There'll be nothing in that game. Rahun will play Kilbacon, so there won't be much in that game again. So it'll be interesting to see who will come out of that group. And again, we're talking about Group 1 with the Ceylon Mullagh Court scenario. Who's going to play? Who's going to come out and go Senior B? Who's going to be Premier Junior? You have the same scenario here, or potentially the same scenario, if Rahun keep winning and beat. If Beha keep winning here and winning all the games, which I'd expect them to do, top the group here, then it's a shootout then between Kilbacantry and Rahoon
Yeah.
for who's going to be getting that second spot and who's going to be playing Premier Junior as opposed to Premier Intermediate. So there's massive prize on thing here. I'm sure Kevin Chunky Hayes and his management team, because Rahoon have been there and have played really well over the last few years at this level, and as a club at underage, have really good work going on within that club. And I think for them, no more than, I think they'll want to push on and ensure they're in that Premier Intermediate. But Kilbacantry are going to have a say in it. So that's going to be a really hard one to call, but that's a cracking. And I think that actually is the next round. So like that's going to be a cracking game. Cracking game.
Yeah, fascinating to see in that one too when you say the
Yeah.
Premier Intermediate. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
And that's one thing, Paul, I think about this year's championship with the new structure. I think each club have so much to play for that even going into round two and even going into round three, and fair play to the county board the way they set it up with one of the teams that's going down in each of them groups, the way it is that, it's there's real battles, and every round in the intermediate this year will mean something for every club. And I think that's going to be great, because in round three, we're still going to be looking at who's going to be here, who's going to be there. So I think that's fascinating, and that can only be good again for Galway hurling at that level. And again, there's green shoots coming out all over the place here with all these teams bringing the younger players around, so it's an interesting championship as well.
For sure. That's all we do have time for on today's show. Huge amount of action to get through there between the 8 games in senior, 4 games in senior B, and 8 games in intermediate. We'll be back, of course, next week with a preview ahead of round two. But that's all we do have time for on tonight's show. Gerry, Kearney, thanks very much for coming on to this week's podcast.
No problem, Paul.